Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning. Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Gavin Courtney.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
It's a bright and sunny morning.
Right. Warm. And we're going to find out just how warm it's going to be. We have Angelia Guy on the line.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
All right. Angelia, what is the general situation looking like?
Okay, we're still having a relatively moist conditions over the area, meaning it's a bit cloudy over some parts of the country, but we don't expect much rainfall during the next couple of days.
Okay, that's good to hear. And what are we looking at for the next 24 hours?
Okay, next 24 hours, showers will be isolated with the chance of isolated thunderstorms developing over the Maya Mountains this afternoon.
Okay, and what about the winds?
The winds will be light from the north and northeast at under 10 knots today, and then blowing from the east and southeast at 5 to 15 knots tonight.
Okay, and in terms of our temperatures, what are we looking at in terms of the highs today?
Okay, high temperatures today will reach near 88 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 94 inland, and 80 in the hills.
And the low temperatures?
Low temperatures tonight will range from 80 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 74 inland, and 66 in the hills.
All right, and in terms of the general outlook, what are we looking at?
Okay, for the next couple of days, we're expecting mainly fair weather with only isolated showers developing.
All right, so that sounds pretty good. Are there any advisories or anything that we should be looking out for in particular over the next few days?
Not at this time.
All right, well, thank you a lot for that weather update, Angelia, and we hope you have a very good day.
You're welcome. Thanks. See you too.
Yeah, warm.
Maybe a little bit of relief from the showers every now and again, but
Yeah.
mostly warm.
Yeah. All right, but we're going to keep things moving, and we're going to get into our eye opener for this morning. And our eye opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. The time to blossom is now, not sometime in the future when you believe the stars will be aligned for you. Having a vision for a future that differs from our current circumstances can be inspiring and exciting, but it can also keep us from fully committing to a present placement. The present moment always offers us the ground in which we can take root and open our hearts now. What this means is that we live fully wherever we are, not hesitating because conditions are not perfect, or we might end up moving, or we haven't found our life partner. This can be scary because we might feel that we're giving up our cherished dreams if we do not agree to wait for them. But this notion that we have to hold back our life force now in order to find happiness later doesn't really make sense. Now is the time to say yes, to be brave, and commit fully to ourselves. Because until we do, no one else will. Now is the time to be vulnerable, unfolding delicately, yet fully into the space in which we find ourselves.
I know that is going to resonate with a whole lot of our viewers this morning because it's, I think, something that all of us can relate to. I think, so many of us have dreams or goals or something that, we can maybe picture what the goal is, but we, can't really, or whether for a whole lot of different reasons we don't push ourselves to like actually just go for it in the moment. And it could be, it could be anxiety, it could be, financial constraints, it could be a whole lot of things. A lot of the times it's like imagined obstacles too. So it's like a lot of the times you think, oh, well, I can't do this now because, this isn't right, or, until maybe next year, or maybe, in a few months when I get this together, I can do it, rather than just, really going ahead and doing. I think that, in my sort of experience, limited as it might be, but I think that a lot of the times you find that when you do actually just jump into stuff, it's like learning to swim, the old-fashioned way when they just throw you into the water. You have to learn how to swim. You have to stay above the water, and then you find out that you eventually do adapt to the circumstances, and then when you look back, you find out that, maybe I shouldn't have waited so long, or maybe I shouldn't have hesitated, because I could handle it. So, it does take a lot of bravery and courage, of course, but it does pay off, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, this one hit home. I think naturally we have somehow we allow ourselves to be slaves to conditions. There's certain conditions that have to be in place to be able to move in a progressive way, and we really see kind of that straight line ahead of how it may go. And really, if we look back on our life, it was never a straight line. But looking forward, that's all we see. And I think a lot of it has to do with fear too. There's a lot of unknown in being able to just pursue things without all the conditions in place. And keep in mind that a lot of these conditions come from societal norms that have just been forced upon us, or that we've adopted without even really recognizing. You look at things like age, you look at things like financial status, you look at things like what most would deem practical or smart and responsible especially. And you use these all as your guidance when sometimes inside you there's just something that you want to go after. So I think that, it's such a beautiful eye-opener to remind us that, you just have to go for it. And oftentimes you find that things fall into place as they should.
For sure.
It doesn't check all the criteria that perhaps you thought were important in the beginning. But it does, in fact, fulfill the need inside of you to be able to pursue that thing. And it could be anything. Just have to kind of throw caution to the wind and go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that what you find is that when you do push yourself to get into the situation, it's like 9 times out of 10 not as bad as you thought it would be, or as difficult, or the challenges that it presents are simply different than the way you thought. And then a lot of the time, you find that people are willing to help and willing to support in those situations as well, especially when it's something new. You may find that you can maybe widen your circle of friends, or maybe find like new people to support you, or even if you have a great support system to begin with, then it's a great way it's all the more reason then to go ahead, because then you'll have something to fall back on, or somebody to keep pushing you through. As you were speaking, one of the things that occurred to me was a lot of the societal norms and the way that we're used to doing things, and how much it's actually changed in the past few weeks, of course, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And it actually reminds me of a conversation that I had with a friend a few weeks ago, because I was saying that as the time went by, I was getting a bit tired of so much uncertainty, and I wish that at least I could have a routine or something like an idea then of where.
That's a control freak in all of us.
Of course, or at least like an idea of where things were going. And my friend really interestingly said, but don't you realize that in all of this uncertainty and chaos, then it's even, you have more of a chance to control what it is that you want to do. You can say that, well, I have this free time, or I have this. So now is the time where I can just decide what's going to happen next, since it's not being decided for me. And I never thought about it like that, but it really did change my perspective, and I thought it was, and I think it's really good, and I think this eye-opener is goes along with that really well. Like, now is a great time if you're able, or if you're facing an unstable situation, try to look at it in the sense that it's my time to be in control.
And don't defer your dreams. I think this is a great example as to just how things can change so quickly in life. You can make the opportunity of it, but don't waste your time sitting around waiting for all the conditions to be perfect, because it almost never is. And if you fail, there's an even better lesson that comes from that.
Yeah. Of course, and I mean, it's not like everything is just going to magically fall into place for you. I think that's all of our hopes, that, one day that, oh, well, I'll just be discovered, or somebody will just ask me to do this thing that I want. And no, you have to actually take the initiative and do it. And it's scary, but it does pay off. And I mean, sometimes there may be bumps along the way, there may be little failures, but, it's all part of the experience.
All right, so that's a great eye-opener for this morning, and we really hope it helped to give you that extra push that you needed to go after the things that you've been considering for so long. And with that, we're going to get moving into our show for today. There's a lot to talk about. Of course, we have been focusing on the COVID-19 situation. We're officially with no active cases for 28 days, they're classifying it as the first wave that has been contained. And we are, very mindful of the fact, and we keep on hearing our health personnel talk about it, that we have to remain vigilant. But in the meantime, I think it is a great time to start taking stock. When and if a second wave happens again, and perhaps we're faced with the situation we saw in April, a lockdown, a state of restricted movements or things of the like, are we going to be prepared this time around? And most importantly, economically, will we be able to manage? So that really puts into focus the next conversation. We know the unions are trying to work out an agreement with the government of Belize on what should happen in terms of whether or not they'll lose their increments, what cost-saving measures they're asking government to make, and they should have a meeting tomorrow to be able to work this out. But we're going to get an update from the unions, specifically the Public Service Union and the Belize National Teachers Union, about what their position is today.
Yeah. And for our second conversation, we know that in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, restrictions are somewhat easing, but we know that for a lot of us, our movements are still restricted to a certain extent and limited for certain purposes. One of the ways that that's been really affected is the way that we do commerce and the way that we do shopping. But on a positive note, we have noticed that some online platforms have been blossoming, and the use of a whole lot of different services. And we are going to learn all about Belize On, which and the representatives from Belize On are going to be talking to us about their online shopping platform. So you can learn all about how to take advantage of that.
Yes. And then we close off with another Kids Time video. Of course, this is courtesy of J&W Shopping Mart. That's the time you get the kids in front of the television, you give them a little bit of education and entertainment in one. And today, Dr. Binox is going to be talking about the invention of super glue. Remember, we're focusing on famous inventions this week, and that's our focus for today. So keep that in mind, parents, as we near the end of the show. For now, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by the PSU and BNTU to find out more about their position. Before we do, though, we have our birthday shout out.
Yep, and we've got 2 birthdays today.
Yes.
So first of all, we want to say a really happy birthday to Laverne Ferguson. Yep. So Laverne, happy birthday. We hope you enjoy it and that you have many more. Yeah. And we also want to say happy birthday to
Louis Crawford. There he is. Crawford works with me at night for the news, and it's, I didn't realize tomorrow's your birthday. I hope you have a great day and do enjoy. And Laverne, of course, I hope the kids are sending you videos of them singing happy birthday. Of course, she's been leading the choir there at St. Luke's for a long time. So we hope both of you enjoy your day. We're going to go ahead and take that break now, and we'll be back in a few. Stay tuned.
In these challenging times, the one
Health Center and share your travel history. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And we are back, and we are jumping right into our first conversation, and we are going to be getting an update in relation to this ongoing situation between the government and Belize, the Public Service Union, and the BNTU. And joining us for this conversation are Dean Flowers, who is the first Vice President and the Public Relations Officer of the Public Service Union. And we are also joined by Senator Elena Smith, who is the President of the Belize National Trade Union. Belize National Teachers Union, I'm sorry. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks for having us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so perhaps we can start at the beginning, just for the benefit of some of our viewers. We can start by discussing at least where we started. We know the position is that the government has asked or is requesting that the members of the unions waive or defer their increments, and that in the first instance that position was not accepted by the unions, and that a meeting was requested with the financial secretary prior to any confirmation of what the unions would accept. Where are we now in terms of the negotiations with the government?
Well,
Dean, or anybody can take that one.
Okay, so from our end, if I may,
Yes.
thanks again for having us. This matter started out when there was a request, as you said, for us to forego an increment. Started some discussions, and then we ended up with a meeting with the FinSec, all three unions combined. We had a meeting with the FinSec, and we discussed the issues that they had presented or their proposal. At that meeting, the unions made a counter proposal, and we also made some requests. For example, one of the requests that we made was that if it is that the government was insisting that we forgo the increment, and then at the time of retirement, it would be included in our calculations, then the union wanted to ensure that we were part of a committee, and that committee would then look at a formula for calculating that amount at the time of retirement. Mm-hmm. The unions also proposed or counter-proposed that instead of having it at the time of retirement, that it could be given at maybe 3 to 5 years after, because we thought that maybe by that time that the country would have been able to bounce back a bit and would have been able to afford. We also requested that a committee be formed where we as unions could be on that committee, and we would be looking at cost-saving measures going forward, medium and long-term cost-saving measures that the government could then implement to help it, in being able to have funds, especially reserves and other funds that we don't have to get to this point should we have another pandemic or a disaster. We also agreed that the FinSec and his team would then have to take those suggestions or proposals that we made to them, would have to take them back to their principals, which would have been the Prime Minister and Cabinet, for approval, after which he would then get back to us with the results of his tabling those to Cabinet. Mm-hmm. After getting back to us with the responses from the government side, then we would then, I guess, offer our views on that, or acceptance or not, and then we go from there. And we had also asked whether it is that whatever is agreed, if those would be put in writing at the end of the discussions, and then we would sign off on those. And the FinSec had said, and we have it in writing, that yes, those will be put in writing and we'll be able to sign off on those. So that was, in summary, how the process went.
Yeah. And
with the unions.
so let's just, because there's been quite a bit of conversation about this over the past few weeks, but one of the things I wanted to bring to the forefront was really talking about how long the unions have been requesting some of the very same information that you're requesting right now. I can recall when collectively through the NTUCB, there was a request to look at a full list of the workers, including the open vote workers, getting some of the breakdown as to who's receiving how much, so that you could be able to have a better picture as to how this very large public wage bill that we talk about is actually being spent. I mean, by your estimation, Elena, how long have the unions been asking for this?
I would think certainly over 12 years.
And you've never received any indication that you get this information?
Well, it has always been, and Brother Dean can speak on behalf of the PS, who said it has always been that, it will take some time to gather that information. It's difficult to determine how many open voters, how many contract officers, because, things change. So, all of these excuses that we've been getting in terms of the government being able to provide the information to the union so that we could, make informed decisions, and that we could then offer them some suggestions as to, what are the things that the government can do to assist in this area.
But break this down for us. Why is this list important in being able to look at cost-saving measures?
I'll let Brother Dean chime in.
Okay.
Good morning once again, and good morning, Belize. The list is important because it forms one of the proposals that we are putting forward to the Financial Secretary. We're saying that for years, as you rightly mentioned, we know that we have a wage bill that has ballooned tremendously out of control. There is the uncertainty that everyone that is on that pay list is even working with the government. And so there are stories of government having a phantom on a ghost payroll. And so we're saying we must receive that list, and collectively, together with HRMIS, who is responsible for payments, along with the Ministry of Finance, we need to do a proper audit of that list to ascertain that everyone that is listed on that list is actually employed with the government, actually has a desk, actually has an office, and is actually a physical person. The reality is that the public service, the Ministry of Public Service, has done such a terrible job over the years, such a poor job over the years at managing the human resource aspect, both from an employment standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, to a management standpoint. And so I can tell you for a fact that the Ministry of Public Service wouldn't be able to accurately answer that question in terms of how many public officers do we really have in the system, and whether or not all of them are deserving of perhaps the salary that is being remitted to them via HRMIS. So there is no getting away from that. We're sticking to a position that we must look at that list. We must do there's also a call for this audit, that we look at what people are doing to ascertain if they're really needed, and if they're not needed where they are, then for us to accommodate them within the system. So as a union, we definitely will not be advocating for the firing of any public officer. But we want to ensure that the general public, that the Belizean public, is getting value for money. And so it's important that we look at that one aspect, and that is only one aspect of our proposal that we put forward to the Ministry of Finance.
Yeah. There are several points. But let me just go back to something you said. You spoke of different scenarios as to why you want clarity as to the full list of voters that fall under this collective wage bill that we talk about all the time. And you said there may be scenarios where, if there are even bodies in that place, What do you mean by that? And do you have proof to say that this is something that actually takes place?
Well, we know that we have a wage bill that has ballooned out of control. We don't have that list. We've been requesting that list. The only way we'd be able to ascertain whether or not the wage bill is a true representation of the amount of bodies in the system is if we do a review and an audit of it. So I wouldn't be able to sit here and tell you we have proof that Marlene Cuellar is on the list and she's not a public officer. We have because they refuse to provide us the list. What the FinSec has attempted to do is to provide us with a head count, but it was not. But neither was it disaggregated by ministry, by department, by units. So if it's disaggregated by department, by ministries, by units, we can still perhaps engage in a mini exercise to ascertain that okay, well, in XYZ's or in the income tax department, they're saying there's 242 individuals. Let's look at across the country and ensure that we get that head count. So we're unable to even do that. What's the big secret? I don't know. And so one has to be a bit skeptical about whether or not government is paying phantom or ghost workers.
Well, can I then, I'll ask that if it's what you're suggesting then is that if this list is revealed or if this audit is done or if in any way this information that you're requesting is revealed, that it would show that perhaps there are expenditures by the government that should be cut and that needs to be addressed as a priority as opposed to the cuts to whatever increments or whatever they are proposing in relation to the unions. Is it that what you are suggesting? That there may be wastage or expenditure that we're not looking at right now?
Well, as I said before, that is only one area in which we would be able to realize savings going forward. Because that exercise would, I can tell you, would reveal a lot of irregularities where employment is concerned and where payment of quote-unquote government employees are concerned. It's an exercise that's long overdue. And so in tandem with perhaps looking at each employee in the government service in terms of what they do, we would be able to eliminate where there exists. I can tell you as we speak, to the best of my knowledge, I have not seen the Ministry of Housing build a single house over the last 10 years. Yet we're paying a CEO in the Ministry of Housing and a full complement of staff. And I will ask the question, to do what? The Ministry of Human Development has taken over most of the roles and responsibilities previously that were previously being executed by the Ministry of Housing. So as far as I'm concerned, we can save ourselves immediately $100,000 by sending home the CEO in the Ministry of Housing because he has absolutely nothing to do, and that's a fact. And the entire ministry needs to be realigned with perhaps or amalgamated with the Ministry of Human Development so that we can get value for money for where there is wastage in the system. This is something, as I stated, the Ministry of Finance doesn't want to touch, and clearly and factually and honestly speaking, it is our view that the Ministry of Public Service is clueless as to how it should be done. And so we're at this crossroad now. We're in economic shambles. We need to do better in how we manage government finances. And we're saying we have several proposals. This is one, and I am really hoping that the government, the financial secretary, is serious about helping the people of Belize, because this is not about the government or an opposition, it's about the people of Belize. And if they're honest in their undertaking, and if they're honest, and if they love their country, they will yield to the request that we're asking for us to fix the finances of this country and to discipline ourselves where spending is concerned, which as we know it as we speak is not being monitored and is basically reckless.
So this particular time, right now, the conversation seems to be diluted to one point, which is as communicated by the Prime Minister, that in my own words, you're being stubborn. You, the unions, you don't want to give up your increment while everyone else is taking a pinch and there's unemployment. But what I'm hearing from you, and what I wanted to be able to expand upon in this interview, is that there is a much larger list of items that you have requested. And it's not, in fact, that you don't want to give up your increment. You want to have it deferred. Explain to me what you mean by that, because I'll be honest with you right now. For everyone else who's taking a salary cut or have lost their job, they're just thinking, how unfair of you as the unions to not want to give up your cut as well when everybody else is taking a pinch.
Well, first and foremost, I do not share the view that everyone is taking a view, and we can get into that conversation as to why I hold that view, including individuals in government. And I can tell you off the top, I'm yet to hear the Prime Minister speak about the foreign service officers who are living lavish lives across this world. I don't know what's the value they're adding to the kind of service we're delivering. I haven't heard him talk about them. I haven't heard him speak about the meager, in my view, with all due respect to every single HOD out there. I mean, when you send a proposal that heads of department will be giving up 25% of their entertainment allowance. So we were saying you ought to give up 100% of your allowance because it is not serving the purpose for which it was intended. And the FinSec has taken the decision that they'll only give up 25%, which is basically $187, if my math is right. 25% of $750. Totally unacceptable. These are the people who sit at the highest end of the pay scale, and in some cases, beyond what the pay scale requires, as we already know of a certain director who, rather than sitting on 25, sits on 27. This is a perfect opportunity for the financial secretary to say to her, because of the cost-saving measures that we're trying to achieve, we will now realign you with your other brothers and sisters in APSSM to be at cost savings at pay scale 25, sorry. As you can see, I'm getting a bit, in using the Prime Minister's term, exercised when I speak of these things, because the reality is that what the Prime Minister avoided and deliberately avoided is to speak about the cost-saving measures and speak about an increment, which clearly he also got wrong, and terribly wrong, where the total value of contribution that public officers will be making is concerned, versus HODs who I just said are simply tasked to give up 25% of their entertainment allowance. And I can tell you, as the Prime Minister rightly said, most HODs, again, if this is not the case, then I challenge the FinSec to provide us with those numbers on Wednesday. But the Prime Minister already alluded to it. Most HODs are at the end of their pay scale, so they are not giving up an increment. They're giving up $187. That's it. It's unacceptable. What is our foreign affairs service officers giving up? What is the private sector giving up? The private sector, as we know it, did not fulfill 52% of their obligation in tax payments. There is no reason why the private sector, who enjoys these tax holidays, these tax exemptions, these tax breaks, only paid 48% of what was collected in 2019. Is it that all these businesses closed down? Why is it that we borrowed $14 million to amalgamate the Belize Tax Services Department, and they had a shortfall of 52% of tax revenue between April 2020 and April 2019? It is clearly saying that we're not getting value for money while paying people more than they deserve to be paid. So the Prime Minister did an excellent job I do not know who all swallowed the pill in trying to paint the public servants, the public servants in a negative light. But we're here to clarify that. We've been clarifying that, and we've been showing the numbers that public servants would be giving up, in some cases, 3 and 4 times more than any cabinet minister would be giving up.
Marlene,
yes,
if I can just add to something that Brother Dean just said, because he spoke about the $187, and so I am trusting that they have punched those numbers. But let's look at that for a minute. So, for example, a teacher who is on pay scale 16, that would be a teacher who would have probably a master's degree, a bachelor's or a master's with a number of years experience. That teacher on pay scale 16 who doesn't get any sort of allowances would be giving up $109 monthly as a part of his or her increment. That is only $78 less than a person who gets entertainment allowance, phone, housing, whatever other else allowance that they get. So when you're saying to me that what we are being asked to give up is just a measly amount, I mean, if you are giving up $109 per month and you don't have any other allowance to fall back on, that's a huge amount coming out of your salary. In addition to the fact that a lot of our teachers and maybe even public service employees are persons who are single parents, one, but two, in this situation right now, a lot of these persons have spouses who have lost their jobs. And so these persons are now the sole breadwinner for the home. Yet these persons are going to be giving up $109 per month. So it doesn't compare. When you look at the numbers, it really doesn't compare.
Well, and I agree with your point. I think what has been missing from the conversation so far is the scale as to, or even if you want to say the percentage of what the loss would be for a teacher or for an immigration officer who faced people all the way into March coming into the country, what they would lose versus what we are hearing is a cut in entertainment allowance or phone allowances. Yes, the monetary value in today's, if you look at it, may look like more, but what's the impact that it makes? But what I didn't get an answer to, and I want to be very clear about this, are you saying that you are not going to take a cut at this time? Is that a firm decision?
I don't think that we have said that we are not willing to make any sacrifice. We want to make that very clear. We have, and I'm talking from our end as well, BNTU has never said that we are not willing to sacrifice anything at all. And as I pointed out earlier, I was only pointing out to show you the difference between the numbers. What we are saying, or what we have been saying, is that we are willing to sacrifice as well. But in sacrificing, our sacrifice has to mean something. It can't be that we are sacrificing and then the government continues to behave the same way it has been behaving all along. There has to be some change. So our sacrifice that we are willing to make has to be worth something, has to produce something that will be beneficial to this country. And that is the point that people are missing. This is not solely about giving up or deferring an increment. This is about the impact that is going to have, and how can we impact now our governance, our accountability going forward. That is the bigger picture.
Dean?
Yeah, and I want to echo that sentiment, Marlene, and I want to make it categorically clear that the Public Service Union at no point in time indicated that we were not making a sacrifice and that we were not prepared to give up an increment. We never held that position. We do not hold that position. What we're saying is, from an equity standpoint, public officers would be contributing much more than ministers, CEOs, and HODs from an equity standpoint. We cannot accept that. Also, if it is that we're going to make a sacrifice, because we need to make a sacrifice, then this is the perfect opportunity for us to address wastage in the system. And finally, we're saying we don't believe, or we believe that if we address the cost saving measures that we're putting forward, that we won't be in this terrible financial position for an extended period of time. We don't know how long it will take for the economy to recover. We don't know how long it will take for government fiscal position where GDP growth is concerned, how long it will take for that to improve. So we're saying we're prepared to do that deferment now, and because of the discipline and the assistance that we will be giving government to ensure that we close all these loopholes where waste and irresponsible spending is taking place, once we rebound, we would like for you to provide that increment to us free of interest, free of retro pay. We don't even want...
You don't want back pay?
We don't want back pay, we don't want interest, we don't want anything. All we're asking for is for the increment to be given at the point in time, whenever that is. We're proposing 3 to 5 years.
So let me see if I'm understanding what your counter proposal is. The financial secretary communicated to you that they want you to forego, never get the increment for this financial year, 2020-2021, erased, no longer applicable. What your counter proposal is that you would want it deferred in 3 to 5 years. You would want then that increment to be added on to the salary of the PSU, of the public service, including the teachers, when things have recovered somewhat.
Yes, that is exactly what we're saying. And just in fairness to the financial secretary, he did send an addendum to his circular number 5, which was speaking about a foregone increment, and he said that they would be prepared to pay the increment at the public officer's point of retirement. So they're saying at your point of retirement, we're prepared to give you back that increment. But the problem with that, Marlene, is that there is no guarantee that any one of us has plans to be in the system until the point of retirement. So we'll be suffering that loss for as long as we're in the system, and once we leave the system before retirement, then we lose that. All right? And so we have to put in place some mechanism that will allow for those people who leave the system prior to reaching retirement that they get that increment. Because as I said, once you give up that increment this year, that's a shortfall that you carry with you up until the point you exit the system. And so I can tell you for a fact that a junior public officer who is on pay scale 3 in 5 years' time would have sacrificed almost $5,000, which is well in excess of what the minister would be contributing, and probably 5,000 times what the HOD, the one-time contribution that the HOD would be contributing, an HOD that is on pay scale 25. This is what the Prime Minister failed to inform the general public, and I think it was disingenuous the way how he painted us as being tiny and measly. It's disrespectful to your workforce. We are to be partners in the provision of service and the administration of this country. And if your employer wants to threaten you in a those blunt manner, in a those autocratic manner, and then turn around and tell the nation that they're tiny and measly, it shows the level of respect that the Prime Minister has for public officers and the work that we do daily, which includes our frontliners who are currently taking a beating when it comes to work hours. It includes our firefighters who I understand had to work their butts off over the last 2 or 3 weeks extinguishing fire, putting themselves at risk and not being paid adequately and properly the kind of overtime that they deserve. It involves our nurses who risked their lives during this recent outbreak.
Yeah.
And were promised an augmented package, which to date we have not received a response from the Ministry of Finance in terms of when will assistance be given to them. Bearing in mind that the Public Service Union has been saying for donkey years that our nurses are being disrespected, they're being mistreated, our health workers are being neglected, and they're being exposed to illnesses and horrible working conditions. So COVID-19 is simply highlighting the terrible job that we've been doing as a people in managing the public service. And this is no fault of the union. This is no fault of the union.
Marlene, if just to add to what Brother Dean said, from the onset, when we had the first correspondence from the FinSec, that correspondence included the point that the foregone increment, their words that I'm using, that the foregone increment would be included in our calculations at the time of retirement. So this is not something that came to us after the fact. This is something that from the beginning, that is how it was framed. We asked you to forego and it will be included. The only difference is that when the circular was sent out, the circular did not include that portion that said that it would have been included in our calculations. And so I wrote to him and I said that wasn't included in there, and so they did the addendum. And also they did not include the fact that we agreed that we would have a committee. That too was included in the addendum. But even after that, BNTU wrote to the FinSec and we explained to him, just as what Bradin said earlier, that for us, for example, there are going to be persons who, for reasons of your license expiring, that those persons would have to leave the profession. And in leaving the profession, you would then be entitled to your benefits. So if, for example, a teacher at the age of 25, 35 years has to leave because that person's license expired, does he or she have to wait until 55 to see that calculation? No, because when that teacher leaves, that teacher is able to get his or her gratuity at that point in time. And then if you qualify for a pension, that comes at the time of the age of 55. So we're saying to the FinSec, listen, we want to make a change to the statement to ensure that it doesn't say at the time of retirement, but that it says at the time the person qualifies for benefits. So that's exactly what Brother Dean said earlier. If anybody has to leave for whatever reason, sickness, anything, that person would not lose anything, but that person can see the calculations at that time in their benefits.
So that's one change you're willing to shift from. Instead of the 3 to 5 year deferral, if you get the confirmation from the FinSec that you would receive the increment at whatever point you leave the service, that would be something you would be amenable to.
Well, we were just responding to what they've sent to us.
Yeah.
Because we've still not said to them, okay, we are willing to accept that. Yeah. But we are ensuring that if it is that is what is going to be the decision, then it has to be that it is worded in a way that is acceptable to us, and it's not going to have any of our members lose out at any point in time. So for that reason, we have to ensure that all of the proposals, that they are properly worded and that they meet what it is that we believe our members deserve.
So let's go back to the other list of requests that you've made to the Financial Secretary. And by my estimation, or well, from what I have seen so far, the letter that was sent back to the PSU, nothing else was addressed except for the fact that they are expecting that you'll accept this proposal, or they may go ahead and change the regulations itself. But you also asked for the disaggregated data on the estimated savings that they're expecting to make. It's $17 million that they're saying they're going to save by withholding increments for 1 year and the cost-saving measures that they're implementing as well.
Yes, that's their target, or at least that's what the FinSec said they would be realizing.
So you don't know how much of that 17 million is from the increments from the public service or from the, the trimming of the entertainment allowance from the others?
If it is that we knew, you would have known, Marlene, since you have the letters there. Now, so again, it goes to show that the FinSec isn't prepared to have an open, honest dialogue with the PSU, whereby we look at the numbers. Let's not forget that public officers are the ones who are employed to administrate the system. So we're saying if we see the numbers, FinSec, and if you explain to us what you're trying to achieve, we will be able to assist you. We're not here to fight with you. We will never forget our role and responsibilities, which is to always be a partner with you in governing this country. Please allow us to see the books. Let us see what kind of savings you want to realize. If it is that you're targeting $17 million, once we get a disaggregation of that 17 million, we will be able to immediately point you to other areas that you may not be able to, that you may not have to touch public officers or HODs or CEOs for that matter. Because along with your staff, along with our representatives, in 2014, we spent 2 years putting together a cost-saving measures and cost-saving proposals for you. You took that and either you shredded it or you placed it on a shelf. We met with you to address the issue of our increments at that time. So we brought that back on the table with the Prime Minister in 2016. And we said, when will we address the report that has been sitting on your desk or shelf, or I don't know what exactly they did with it. The Prime Minister recomposed another committee chaired by Mr. Garrett Maria from ATSSM. They have some excellent personnel from the Ministry of Finance on the official side, and the unions, both DNTU and PSU. Another cost savings report with solid proposals were put forward at the end of 2018 or the beginning of 2019, which speaks to vehicles, which speaks to rental, which speaks to the selection and recruitment manual, which seems to have, which the Ministry of Public Service seems to have thrown through the window as well, and have now contracted a private or a public political figure to now do the recruiting for them. That report is comprehensive, and that report, I can tell you off the top, if we look at that report, we can save well in excess of $30 million alone when it comes to vehicles and the manner in which the recommendations were made. And so the FinSec, the Ministry of Finance, the government is not serious about cost-saving measures. And clearly the agenda is to paint us in a negative light. I am hoping and praying that the Belizean public are checking their change and not paying any attention to the noise that is being made out there. And that they must understand that the PSU, as a responsible union, is putting forward the truth, and we're hoping that the public will understand that, and the public will ensure that they pressure their representatives to yield to the suggestions being made by the Public Service Union. We are hoping for an amicable dialogue on Wednesday with the Prime Minister. I keep saying that the Prime Minister has the executive power to do as he pleases, and if he believes that despite our best effort, despite our honest effort, and despite the humility that we're displaying in this matter, where this matter is concerned, he wants to act in an autocratic fashion. I keep saying he has that authority, and he should judge him for that.
Well, before we talk about that meeting even more, we haven't discussed as yet what the government is proposing that they will cut on. And so we'll actually tackle that after this break. So we'll take a quick pause. And when we come back, we'll be assessing what is being proposed from the government side as to how they are going to be cutting costs. So please stay tuned.
Or for a copy of the new regulations, visit the Department of the Environment's website at www.doe.gov.bz.
And if you're just joining us, we're continuing part 2 of our conversation with representatives of the Public Service Union and the Belize National Teachers Union as we talk about the current impasse that is taking place in looking at how we reduce the wage bill and be able to survive the economic crisis brought on by COVID-19. We have with us Dean Flowers, who's the first vice president, and the PR officer for the PSU, and Senator Elena Smith, who's the president of the BNTU. Now, we spoke before the break about some of the proposals, and really only some, because there's much more that we haven't gotten into as yet, that you have put forward to via the financial secretary, looking at how you can be of assistance and get more clarity as to the cost-saving measures government is undertaking. The critical issue here is looking at the foregoing of the increments. And before we went to the break, you clarified that you would prefer to have a deferral where for 3 years or 5 years you don't get your increment, but then you're able to collect upon it with no back pay. Now let's flip to the other side. Let's explore what the government is proposing they will do to be able to save costs. And of course, the most controversial one is looking at those allowances, the housing and entertainment monthly allowance of $1,600 and telephone allowance of $1,000, both monthly, in addition to the salaries, that they are willing to take half of the allowances and several other measures, but I'll have you explain them. Dean?
As the Prime Minister explained on the letter state, that is what they're prepared to give up. Which, as our position is that it's simply not enough. We must also bear in mind that in addition to those allowances that you spoke of, government ministers also receive a motor vehicle allowance of $1,300. Okay, CEOs as well. There are those who may be assigned a government vehicle, or there are those who may say, well, give me the allowance and I'll use my personal vehicle. Then before you know it, they commandeer a government vehicle. So again, it's another form of double dipping by them. And so it doesn't matter how you paint the picture, Marlene. We can pretty much assume that when you look at a 1 month salary and the 50% cut in these different allowances, that these ministers would be giving up around $6,000, $7,000. But I can tell you that within 5 or 6 years, a junior public officer would have given that. So what we're pushing for is equity. We must have equity where these matters are concerned. And like I said, for us, it's not about making a sacrifice. I want to make clear it's not about making a sacrifice. We're amenable to make any sacrifice, whether it's a deferment or a foregone, as long as there's equity and fairness. But at this point in time, that is not being offered to us, and so we will have to continue the negotiation until we can reach a middle ground.
Now, I'm trying to be clear here that it's not that they won't give up anything. They're giving up half of these 2 allowances, because you're saying there's also a vehicle allowance that is that wasn't mentioned. So they're giving up half of the housing and entertainment allowance, so that's $800, and I think it's half of the telephone allowance, which means they'll give up $500, right?
Yeah.
And they're also giving up the ministers 1 month's salary.
One time.
One time, 1 month salary. And what else?
That's it. So.
And they only have a few more months left in office.
I'm not saying that they're not giving up something, Marlene. I'm saying that what they are giving up does not equate to what public officers will be giving up. Okay, that's a one-time contribution. It would be easier for me as a senior public officer to give up 1 month's salary than to give up one year increment. It would be easier for me to give up a month's salary than give up a year increment. And so that is exactly what is happening here. They're giving up 1 month's salary coupled with some allowances, and then they're coming to us and say, we want you to give up. And I'm not advocating here that public officers be asked to give up 1 month's salary. I'm just saying it would be cheaper in the long run for us to do that. Yeah. And that is exactly what these guys are doing. Even if you were to take that minister $6,000 and $7,000 and invest it the best paying credit union or best paying bank out there, in 5 years, they would still not equate what one junior public officer to give up. So equity needs to be achieved, and along with that, we must address fixing the problem of wastage, because let's speak about the $1,000 phone package. Now, I don't know what kind of calls these ministers make and what kind of service they require. But my leave package cost me for $1.50. And Marlene, I have all the data I will never be able to use in 1 month. I could make all the calls. It might cost me a little extra couple dollars if I do and leave it at roaming international, but I surely can get by, as I'm quite sure any minister can get by, with $200 or $300 in telephone allowance. There is absolutely no need for $1,000. And one of the things that I want to make clear, during the break you spoke about the allowances are earned by public officers after years of service and putting in work. Man, we're talking about ministers here who do not have to exhibit any kind of qualification, any kind of training, any kind of experience that the police receptionists have to exhibit, including a mathematics CXC pass and an English CXC pass. And what we do with that poorly public officer, we pay her $700 or $800 a month. And he had to go through an interviewing process. He had to show that she has the requisite qualification, experience, training, and ability to do that job as a receptionist. And then we turn around and we pay a minister $81,000 base salary, and he doesn't exhibit any ability, any experience, any formal training to be able to get the job done. And then we turn around and say to that public officer, we want you to sacrifice 1 year increment, and we will give up 1 month's salary. The comparison is unequitable. It is unfair. It's a shame that we're having this discussion, man. We shouldn't even be having this discussion.
So what are you saying? You want them to give up more? You want them to perhaps look at, I mean, what is your proposal moving forward? Because I hear what you're saying. I think again, I say, if you put it on the balance scale, it's as easy to see that it's a bigger sacrifice. But what are you proposing? Because simply saying they make a big salary and they have a lot of allowances, I think, everybody can see that. But what would you like to see is taking place from their end that would make you feel that the sacrifice you and all the public officers and all the teachers, and this of course includes your nurses, your lab techs, your everybody, that it will be okay for you to take your cut as well. What do you want to see from their end?
From an equity standpoint, Marlene, if we were to look at a junior public officer who's on pay scale 1, and let's put him at 20 years old, and see how much money over the long run he would be foregoing, and I probably have something here if you allow me to just let me see. Yeah. So if we look at a junior officer who would be giving up 20 years of increment, that officer would be giving up $19,000 over those 20 years. If the minister would have come to me and say, I'm giving up $20,000 or $19,000, then that would be equity on my, when I compare that with my lowest public officer. But they're not saying that. So What we're saying is the maximum that a junior public officer should be required, or public officers should be required to forgo the increment is 5 years. Because in 5 years you would have achieved what you're giving up. So let we bring one a little bit of equality because we have never achieved equity. So let we bring one a little bit of equality to the table. After 5 years, we would have contributed the exact same amount, if not more. In my case, as a senior public officer and others, we would have been giving up more. In 5 years, we would have given up more than these ministers are giving up. So we're saying, let we get back this increment in a 5 years, because from an equality standpoint, we would have contributed the same to trying to help fix the financial situation of this country. But you cannot expect me to, after 5 years, continue to carry this burden. When you're in retirement after 8 years, as Sister Elena said, or after 2 terms, and then I am struggling to reach 15 years, and I still have to carry this burden. It doesn't add up, and it's not fair. And I hope that they see it for what it is, that it's an unreasonable request of public officers.
And I think, Marlene,
yes.
I think that is why it is important, because if you noted the Prime Minister kept pounding on the amount that they will be giving up compared to the rest of us, our measly. And so, for example, quickly, when you look at the allowance, those 2 allowances that we spoke about, the 1,600 and the 1,000. A teacher who is on pay scale 5 would have gone 20 years on that scale, 20 years of receiving increment on pay scale 5. And at that point, if that teacher doesn't qualify any further, that teacher her salary would be 2,280, less than an allowance. A teacher who
after 20 years of service.
Right, because remember, every year you get an increment. So we have to keep in mind that giving up my increment this year that I already earned, this is not what I am supposed to get, this is what I already worked for, because I worked for it last year, it is being paid this year. Yeah. So I already worked for that increment, and giving that up means that this year, I am not going to be moving any step up on my pay scale, because that is going to be taken away. So I won't be moving up. So that same teacher whose salary is starting at 1,064 and goes to the maximum of 2,280 would be giving up $65 per month in increment. That is that teacher's increment, $65 per month. In 10 years, that teacher will be giving up $7,910. In 15 years, when that teacher is eligible for gratuity and pension, that teacher would have given up $11,865. And in 20 years, $15,820 that teacher would have given up over those years. When we look at, as Baradine said, the politicians can get gratuity and pension after 2 terms in office. Only 2 terms in office. We have to wait for at least 15 years, because if you leave after 10 years, you will only get a pension. But if you leave after 15 years, then you qualify for gratuity and your pension. Now imagine the salary that we are getting, and let us look again, and as Brother Dean keeps saying, it's not just about the increment or the figures, but because that is what is being put out there to make us seem as if though we are being mean, we have to then show our numbers as well. When you look at the fact that the teachers, for example, you get $1,064 for your salary, or let us go to a pay scale 8, which might be the most common salary scale, $1,589 per month. Of that $1,589, you take monies from that, $1,000, $1,500 sometimes, it depends on which scale you are on. You take monies out of your salary to fix up your classroom, to buy everything for your class, to buy your marker, buy your book, buy your everything. Imagine a teacher getting that salary per month, having to spend his or her own money to do the job. The only government paid employee who must find his or her tools to do his or her job with that kind of salary. And we don't get no kind of additional nothing to say as teachers, because you are always giving, we will give you an additional responsibility allowance or something to that effect. Yeah. In opposition to that, we see where our teachers have lost some of their hardship allowances that they used to get because there was a change in how these schools were being placed in categories. So it is just to show that while it's not all about the money, it's just to show that, to put out there to the public to say that we are giving so much, that we are giving a measly contribution towards what they are getting. It doesn't paint a true picture.
And let's speak, and I think this is the inequity that you speak of, because it is offensive to call it measly. And I think that if you think $65 may be dispensable to some, $65 may be dispensable to some people, but to someone who is collecting, you said the monthly salary of $1,500, for example, an extra $65 can cover some of your utility bills.
Exactly.
And it's one less thing to worry about. So it's not a matter of looking, you can't, we all value money differently. And it's all dependent on how much we receive, because that really tends to become our marker.
So true.
Yes, and I just wanted to very briefly raise sort of a practical concern in the sense that, and I'm paraphrasing now, the government to say that what it has been said that what we're facing right now in terms of a financial crisis is almost unprecedented. And for example, we have already seen that the tax revenues which were collected in the last month have been way below what is really needed to meet a lot of what are the government's existing financial obligations. Now, when I'm talking about practicality, I'm just I'm hoping you can elaborate a little bit more on how the practicality and how perhaps you would intend or suggest that the evaluation or the exercise in terms of looking at the salaries and you know, whatever sort of financial benefits all of these workers, if we're talking, because we're talking about a big pool now, if we're talking about from the ministers to foreign service officers, and so when, you know, next week, next month, the government, I would imagine, would respond to say that, well, we have all of these existing financial obligations. You may have valid points, but how can we go through this exercise in a time when we have to pay people next week, or we have to pay people, so, and we're already not, we don't have enough of what we need. So can you comment a little bit on how you would suggest, or what your view is on the practicality of your suggestions?
Okay, well, firstly, I want to thank you for asking that question, because I think it's a very important question, and it's very relevant to the conversation, because increments for public officers are not paid at the beginning of the year, or at the middle of the year, or at the end of the year. It's paid across the year when your anniversary comes up. So I say that to say that the 17 million that they're targeting, and whatever value, the 3 to 5% of that I understand the increment may account for, is not an immediate saving. So when the FinSec came to us, and when we received his first email in March, it was that the government needs to realize some immediate savings. Now, if you're talking about increment, then I think we can all agree that that wouldn't necessarily be an immediate savings. Because myself, I'm not due an increment anytime soon. So clearly something is wrong when the government is saying it is in an effort to realize immediate savings. We're saying we know, we have suggestions how you can realize immediate savings. When I look at the increment issue and I look at contract officers issue, we may very well be able to save more if we start eliminating those contract officers whose contracts are expiring during the course of this year, rather than waiting for our public officers' increment date to be realized. Let's not forget that as of March 2019, 495 people accounted for $20 million alone. $20 million, 495 people.
Now, you can, I mean, it's easy to say get rid of the contract officers, but you also need to know who's needed and who perhaps there is already a paid position that exists that could do the work.
Well, yes, you can make that argument, but I can also say to you that if you're not from a technical grade, as the regulation it clearly states, you ought not to be considered for a contract. Why is it that the financial secretary is issuing contracts to drivers? Why is it that the financial secretary is issuing contracts to accounts clerks in the Ministry of Finance? Why is he bringing, if you look at the Ministry of Finance alone, you'd be shocked to learn the amount of contract officers that are in there. You mean to tell me that for all the years that the financial secretary has been there, that for all the years that the Ministry of Public Service has been in existence, no one had any vision to do any succession planning? You mean to tell me that everybody in the Ministry of Finance will be another G. N. Gandhi? That despite the age that he accumulated over the wonderful service that he provided to this country, we'll have a bunch of 70 and 80-year-olds dragging themselves to work? Man, where is the meaningful contribution that these people will be able to make in the long run? I think that it is no fault of us again that the Ministry of Finance is one ministry, it's a classical ministry that has done poor succession planning. And so I am not saying that we need to rid ourselves of these contract officers tomorrow. I am saying let's look at the list. Where secretaries are concerned, where clerks are concerned, where office assistants are concerned, I mean, let's see how we can weed them out immediately, because people are in the service that can do that job. And where the technical grades are concerned, let's look within the system, start grooming our people and preparing our people to assume these positions. So these are areas whereby we could realize immediate savings. And I want the general public to know that when you bring one driver or an office assistant or a clerk on contract, that person immediately earns much more than a regular public officer who is on a pay scale or on a pay grade. Automatically earn much more, salary-wise as well as with gratuities and possible benefits. So those are areas of immediate savings that we can address. We can address the issue of rental. I would like to know, why is it that the financial secretary supported the moving of the immigration department out of a government-owned building at the end of this month when we're trying to realize savings in Belize City, out of the Charles Bartlett High building? They were removed to go and pay rent. Why? Why are we doing things like this and we're talking about public officers, please make one sacrifice? Then all that we're trying to do is to see how we can continue to enrich our friends, our cronies. Why is it that the bulk of government ministries are currently sitting in Asian buildings? It's like, is that the new norm that we rent from Asians? Why is it that the government has not taken $20 million and build a nice building to start housing these ministries? I mean, and that's in the long term. Yeah. That's not an immediate cost saving, but I'm saying as we speak, the government is moving departments and ministries out of government-owned buildings and putting them in rented spaces. Yeah. These things are unacceptable. As we speak, the Prime Minister said there will be a moratorium on new employment, yet we're seeing that they continue to employ people. So as far as we're concerned, it's a facade, basically, what the picture that is trying to be painted out there about government seriousness, about addressing the shortfall deficit. I would like to know, how will we address the tax evasion that also has us here? Like I said, nobody is calling out the private sector. Public sector fund is paying private sector wage as we speak. But is the private sector doing what they ought to be doing to contribute their fair share? They're not. 52% shortfall. and nobody wants to speak about the private sector and neglecting its responsibility to pay its taxes. I don't have an option. I pay 25% off the top. I don't get to see. So when we talk about realizing immediate savings, I can tell you, we can't identify those areas of immediate savings. We're not in that privileged group that gets paid in lieu of vacation. I would never get paid in lieu of vacation. I don't have blue eyes. So there's only a selected few that deliberately run up their vacation leave and then they go to the Ministry of Finance who approve these things. So
let me bring it back. Let me bring it back for a second because we're going to run out of time, and I want to get a clear vision forward. Tomorrow you have a meeting where you are expected to be able to work out an arrangement that will be beneficial. What I hear is, and you know, let's be honest. The wastage that you speak of is one that we've been speaking about long before COVID. And the plea from the unions has been for a long time about disclosing information so we can be that you can give better suggestions as to how government can be more prudent in how they're using our public funds. But going back to tomorrow, there is an immediate challenge on the table. There has to be a way that the government can afford to pay the wage bill and the other bills. And they're asking you to agree to this increment, to giving up this increment for 1 year. Tell me, what are your expectations going in tomorrow? It sounds to me that you're very clear that you will not accept the proposal on the table, but there probably is going to be the expectation of some sort of compromise.
From a PSU standpoint, we were hoping that the Prime Minister has taken the time out to look at the presentations that we've been making since his press conference, that he will look at the bigger picture and understand that perhaps he didn't have at his disposal all the information that was relevant to him making the sort of declarations that he made. Perhaps the financial secretary failed to properly advise him. We're hoping that we could have a discussion surrounding our presentation and his thoughts on that, because as I said, if it is that our contribution will be just a tiny drop in the bucket, then I cannot understand why the Prime Minister would go to great lengths to threaten to go to the Governor General simply to retrieve that tiny and measly contribution. It makes no sense. So I am hoping now that we've put forward our position in terms of the numbers, that he would reconsider his position. So, and like I said, I am also really hoping that he will say to us and that he will instruct the Ministry of Finance to put together a working group or a working committee to immediately start effecting cost savings measures.
But can we be practical though? There probably is no time to gather a group and work out solutions collectively. Are you going to the table with definitive suggestions as to what you would want to see from the government side that they do? You're saying what they're offering is not enough, it's not equitable, in other words, it's not fair, but do you have in your mind, either the BNTU, the PSU, or collectively, what you would like to suggest from them moving forward?
But Marlene, I think that is where those cost-saving measures come in, and it's not something that they don't already have. They have had these things for some years now. This is not the first committee that has worked on these things, and the committees use their books to come up with the suggestions or proposals that they have come up with. It's just that the government has not done its part to really ensure that those things are implemented. So we are not starting from scratch. It's not something that will take them some months to deal with. They can address those matters almost immediately. Okay. So for me, it's about us being able to share with them our positions. And maybe it is that, as Baradine has said, maybe it is that the Prime Minister has not been given a clear picture of our reaction or counter proposal to their proposal, and maybe in sitting down and going through and explaining that to the Prime Minister, then he would have a better understanding of where we are coming from, and he would see that this is not about us not wanting to do our part. This is just about us ensuring, as we said before, ensuring that as a country, we don't have to get to this point again next year or 2 years from now when another disaster or another pandemic comes, that we are able to put things in place to be able to meet when that time comes. Marlene, I have to say this, we have not even gotten to a final decision as yet as it relates to this matter in terms of, say, what is going to be the final take on it. Yet we have from our end, and I have to say the name, we have been informed by some of our members that St. Ignatius High School has already deducted from those teachers' salaries when we have not even concluded this matter as yet. So, I guess because they're hearing that the Prime Minister is saying certain things, that they are just going through and they are just abiding and not even waiting to see if this matter has been finalized. So I just want to point out that from our end, we are willing. That is why we requested a meeting, because we want to have the discussion so that we can, for us as BNT, we can share with our members, listen, this is the situation, these are the positions, we have no choice, we have to do X, Y, or Z, or this is what we can do. Which would you prefer? That is what we want to come out with, that we can share with our members definitively. What's the information, what are the positions, and then we can make our decision to say, yes, this is how we are going to sacrifice. Yeah. We are willing, but the issue is how or at what point.
Yeah. All right. Well, we thank you for sharing your position this morning, and of course, we'll keep following the story.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and we will be back in a few. Stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Smart. since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
And we're back, and we're moving into our next conversation for today. We are all talking about what the new normal is, and shopping is definitely not what it used to be.
Oh, yeah.
So we are very happy to be able to talk about one of the alternatives now available in Belize, that is online shopping, and that is Belize On. We have with us, joining us via Skype, Michael Fuller, who's the marketing manager, and Kay Menzies, who is the co-founder. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Morning, guys.
All right. Well, we're grateful that you are able to join us this morning and tell us more about the services that you offer. And it's so interesting. I was just asking you how long ago you started, and it's only been 6 months.
Yeah, it's been a really exciting 6 months for us since we started and where we are today. Belize On has been one of our dreams to bring to the Belizean people, in that we're providing a space where you can list products, services, and have it reach the entire country.
Yeah, the whole idea being that we help connect Belize with Belize. So it's really good. A lot of people think that we're sort of importing products that they can order from outside services and this kind of thing. No, we're simply trying to connect Belizean businesses with Belizean consumers in an easier way.
So, I mean, 6 months ago, we weren't talking or looking at online shopping as seriously as we are right now. Your goal back then, what made you think that we were ready to be able to explore shopping online for products that some people can just drive to the supermarket and get?
Well, first of all, I wanted to shop at home. You know, sometimes you just have that stuff that you need and you don't want to get dressed and leave home and go dig around in supermarkets and things like this. And it's just much more convenient. But one of the driving motivations behind this was we have so many wonderful Belize products. We make excellent Belizean products of all kinds. And it's so hard to find them in stores. Usually you have to go to a gift shop. We treat it as a souvenir for a tourist. Or else if you find it in a local supermarket, it's on the bottom shelf at the back behind everything else. And it becomes very difficult to find. And so we were curious if there was a way, again, for Belize business to help Belize business to connect with Belizean consumers. And this was the model that we developed for that. And it's turned out to be quite timely.
It most definitely has. So when you say Belizean products, are you talking about just locally produced products or products being sold locally?
Both, yeah.
Okay.
And I'll let Michael explain more.
Yes.
Yeah. So like Kay said, our main goal was to try to get Belizean businesses onboarded and to have consumers across the country be able to shop for these items.
Yeah.
I mean, and as we're going along, I'm discovering products that I had no idea existed in Belize. And so that's the most exciting part for me, to now be able to not have to go all the way to Placencia, not have to go all the way to San Pedro and these different locations to get these items right at my door. And what's so cool with that is, so you have the Belizean producers who are now getting a lot more exposure, and these other businesses who are acting as distributors for products that are being imported in the country now they all have a wider audience to reach. And so people are discovering more and more products every day on our site. I mean, we have a ton of SKUs on there, a ton of different products up there that you would never know existed in Belize if you didn't shop on this source before.
Yeah. And and Mike, I wanted to ask a little bit, since you said about your, discovering new products and wanting to put them out there. When it came to like actually, building the platform and whatever, how easy was it to get people on board to like actually want to distribute their products when this is kind of online shopping, as Marlene said, hasn't usually been a priority in terms of the local market. So how responsive were people in the beginning?
To be honest with you, people were really excited to come on board. They wanted an opportunity to extend their reach, and so our onboarding process is super easy. We'll onboard you within a day or two with different material that we require to get you onboarded. And some of the perks for these vendors are you get to list your products for free for the remainder of this year, for example. And since we had started, a different amount of products you can list for free on the site. We do marketing and advertisement for you for free on the site. So businesses are getting a ton of different perks. And so I think since we started, that has been one of the major aspects that they took on and wanted to, and generated excitement for them to now be on an online platform that prior to this, they were probably doing advertisements on their social media pages, maybe Facebook and Instagram, and trying out maybe different little avenues here to make that sale. But now everything is in one place. And what's so cool about the platform is now maybe I'm looking for, let's say, chocolates, which we have a fantastic vendor on there and more vendors who want to come on board for chocolates. And so I'm searching for that, and then I'm seeing, what else can I purchase on the site? And my mind starts to run wild, and I could create all of these amazing recipes with the different things that are on there. And so I'm bundling items together. I'm not having to visit store 1, store 2, store 3. It's all in one place, and I get it shipped right at my door. That's the best part.
I think sometimes, and clearly because we're in the city, we tend to be very Belize City centric, but there are people outside of Belize who oftentimes have to trek here to be able to collect things. I'd imagine this would be most useful for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where have you seen the biggest uptake in terms of consumers?
To be honest with you, it's been countrywide. The biggest amount has been out west, and then followed by the north, especially after COVID measures kicked in.
Yeah.
And the issue for the South is reach, but there's a lot of a growing interest from the South as well. So right now, I mean, we're happy to see that the demand is countrywide, and we're able to deliver. Well, under COVID, we had some restrictions, but we're able to expand our delivery on almost daily basis, so that we're able to reach most of the country at this point.
So what's your turnaround time for delivery?
To be honest with you, it can be same day, at most 2 days, depending on where you are in the country and where the vendor is that we're transporting from, but never more than 2 days, but most often within 24 hours.
So if in a whim I decide I want to cook us outside ham tomorrow, you guys can deliver it maybe by today?
Absolutely.
Of course.
We're waiting. We're right here waiting for you.
That would mean I know how to cook it, but that's another story.
Yeah, but actually
We can't procure the cook yet, but we're working on that too.
That actually brings up what was going to be my next question in terms of sort of the range of products that are featured on the platform. So, what kinds of products is it? Is it limited to any particular thing, or is it, what kind of products are we looking at, or variety-wise?
Well, one of our taglines is anything, anytime, anywhere. And we do mean that. What we do have a standard. Consumers have a particular expectation. And so it has to be a certain quality. It has to be that the product or service is delivering as promised.
Yeah.
But in terms of range of products, no, anything and everything. And we also add to that it's not just goods, it's services as well. Until the COVID measures kicked in, for example, we had a spa present on the site, and we're adding.
Wait, how does
almost
that
daily.
work? How do you?
You make your through the site. There's a link there that allows you to choose your day and your time, and you make your payment, and the spa gets the notice and is waiting for you. Unfortunately, right now they're on hold. But we do all kinds of services. Basically, a vendor contacts us, and one of the things that we do is every single day we're innovating and finding new ways to do what we do, so that what we may not have considered a month ago, all of a sudden is appearing on the site, for example.
Yeah. I do love that you give priority space to Belizean-made products. That's because then you find products that, I mean, you never knew were being made in country. But you also have other items. This is a really great time, I think, for online shopping or e-commerce to be able to expand. Do you still have hesitation from the vendor side about being able to use your site? I mean, new things don't always take on so easily.
Not necessarily. The vendor onboarding process is really easy. Again, we simply ask for basic information on your products. Of course, when you're shopping online, the only contact the consumer has with your products before purchasing is on how the product looks and the description and the price point.
Yeah.
So all of those things need to be taken into consideration, but it's a very easy process. And I mean, we're onboarding new products almost every day on the site. So I don't think there's any hesitation at this point. I think more and more we're going to see a lot more Belizean businesses wanting to come on board, and Belizean producers especially, because one of the neat things about going online as a business, you don't need to, let's say I'm a startup. When you have a startup business, you have to take into consideration a whole bunch of different expenses. When you list online, you eliminate the cost of rent, utilities, all of those bills that would have been associated with opening up a storefront. And with a storefront, you're limited to one location. With being online, you cut out all of those costs. You have unlimited shelf space to list your products. You have priority exposure, where we are rotating products constantly on the page, so that you see the wide range that's on there. So for Belizean businesses, I mean, this is the most convenient way to sell your products now in Belize.
And I would add to what Mike said, and even if you're able to distribute, let's say you're a big enough business that you're producing and you're able to distribute nationwide, you have transport costs. You have to deliver to a store. You have to give a certain amount of discount and incentives to that store to carry your product and give it prominent displays. And then you have to advertise. All of that is taken care of in one space at a lot less cost. There is no cost to join. There is no cost to post your product. And so it's win-win for everybody concerned.
Yeah.
And for the consumers themselves, what's the feedback been like from the people who've actually been taking advantage? Do they like it? Is it like a user-friendly platform? What's the feedback been like?
Really, really good. I mean, when we started this, of course, we had to get the word out about how to use the platform and the different procedures. But we recently had an update on the platform and the app, which is also free to download, where the entire experience is so much more easy to use. Products load fast. You're seeing spotlight products. It's as simple as adding an item to your cart, checking out, picking your payment method, which we have several different payment methods that extend to any type of Belizean in the country. And enter your shipping information, and it gets shipped to you. So more and more, we're looking at how to make that a smoother process. But for now, it's been, it's really, really easy to use.
So what are your payment options? How do you purchase online? Is it?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So users can choose from selecting credit card payments, which if you look at our demographic here in Belize, there's only a small percentage of people who have credit cards. But apart from that, you can choose bank transfers. Most people are getting used to doing online banking now and have online banking set up with their banks. You could do physical bank deposits at a bank where you can walk into.
Okay.
We have payment methods where you can choose from BCCI, select BCCI Western Union locations or Zetro bill pay locations countrywide.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, every Belizean has an opportunity to order online, experience the shop, and go fulfill their payment.
Okay. Yeah.
And I would add that when we walked into this space, when we entered this space, we were doing so knowing that there's a lot of fraud out there. One of the reasons that we decided to do it was you had a lot of stories out there of people making their payment and never getting product, or getting things that they had not, getting junk instead of what they thought they had bought.
Yeah.
Things like that. And so there was a deep trust issue, and we knew that we would have to overcome that.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, if you go on our Facebook page, or anybody goes on our Facebook page, the testimonials there will tell you that we work very hard to make sure that we maintain that trust. We have ensured that the whole process from start to finish is secure, that the seller gets paid, that the buyer gets what they asked for, that there's an understanding from the seller that the buyer must get what they paid for. Mm-hmm. And so what you see on the site is what's going to show up at your front door. And people have begun to discover that all on their own.
That's excellent. And, I think I was going to ask in terms of securing the data, because that's always the hesitation for people in inputting their credit card data or disclosing the bank accounts with online transfers. I'm sure you put a lot of work into that as well.
Us and our banking partner, I have to say. You have an ability to open an account on the site only for your own records. Yeah. Basically, if you're somebody who regularly orders item A and you know that you want 3 of item A every Friday, you can go into your account, log in, and just keep ordering that same order over again. So you can look back on your records in that respect. But when it comes to payment structures, we have built the site along with our banking partners in a way that people will see when it goes to payment, you get kicked over to a secure gateway. Okay. Neither the bank nor Belize keeps credit card records. That's dealt with by a very highly secure gateway. Okay. And when it comes to bank transfers and so on, we never see your data. All we want is the receipt that shows that you have made your payment. We confirm that, and your goods are on their way.
Okay. Now, what are you hoping? I mean, at one point you were also selling produce. That was just at the time that there was excess vegetables on the farms. But is that also something you're looking at long term? I mean, some of us would love to be spared of going to the market.
Yes.
Not saying who, but some, right?
You're not alone, Marlene.
Yeah.
We realized, and this is our mission. This is why Belize was formed, to connect the seller with the buyer in the most efficient way possible. Yeah. And in the middle of COVID, we were hearing stories that the farmers were having backed up supplies of produce. The tourism industry as a main buyer had essentially disappeared. Mm-hmm. And local Belizeans were saying, I don't want to go to the market, or if you go to the market, the farmer didn't come in that day because they didn't want to deal with being turned back at checkpoints and so on. So we were having what's known as a break in the supply chain. And we thought, well, this is why we're here. So we went to try and solve that problem. And that was our first effort. And to be honest with you, we intend to continue that effort because we see where there's a need for it, and we see where it can be dealt with in a way that absolutely benefits everybody in the chain, from the producer to the buyer. And that's what we're here for.
All right.
And you've made it so far 6 months, and it's been pretty successful so far. Do you have any sort of concrete aspirations or visions for where you see the platform going in the future?
We're here. Yes, Gavin, we have loads of ambition.
Yes.
We have actually a very dynamic team behind the site, and we have regular meetings, and everybody's sitting there just throwing ideas at each other. So the site never stops evolving and it never stops growing, and that's the point.
Yeah.
But in terms of immediate ambitions, we are going to branch out the site shortly to a whole new service involving, and I won't say anything more than this, involving food. So Marlene, your chef is coming to you.
Ooh.
And we're also, this is meant to start local, but it's also meant to take our products eventually international. The idea being that, again, we are blown away by the quality and diversity of local products that we're seeing, and we want to help those local products go into foreign markets, and we feel that we're very well positioned to do that. So that is also one of our future ambitions.
Wow. And, you know, in the rollout so far, I mean, you're 6 months in, and I'd imagine your busiest months have been the past 2 months. How has the delivery part worked out? Because there's the idea of what you want to do, and then there's the practicality of it.
It's been an adventure. I don't know which of us will write the first book first, but it's been an adventure. But to be honest with you, the delivery part has worked out very well. What we've done is, in terms of making sure that our consumers are never disappointed, we've been very realistic about our capabilities for delivery. Yeah. So if we can't deliver to a particular area because our drivers won't be back by curfew or something like that, we're very clear with people who inquire, and we say, listen, you're just out of our reach. But we actually, our reach increased during the COVID lockdown to some extent because of the increase in demand. It enabled us to deliver more. Yeah. And that's, perversely, it actually worked out better to be able to deliver because we had more demand for delivery.
Yeah. Now, this is an Amazon service. You're not going to leave it on my front door. You actually have to hand over to someone, right?
Well, we hand over, but the good news about our service is it's contactless delivery. It's contact-free delivery. Okay. In that the Amazon part of what we do, Marlene, is all our deliveries are done electronically. Okay. That is to say, the driver carries a device, he logs in that he's made the delivery, and normally you would sign that device to say that you've received it. Okay. We have evolved, thanks to COVID, into developing measures for delivery that confirm delivery, but without any contact between the person who is getting the product from the driver. Both sides are safe and secure in that regard, and you still get your product not left at your doorstep for sure.
What's not on Belize right now that you would love to be able to offer to the public? Aside from the food, which you say is coming.
Michael has a wish list that he updates every day.
Oh, really? Yeah. Tell us about that wish list.
There's a whole, talking about wish list, so that's one of the cool features on the site right now, where now you could add items and say, when it's your birthday, you could send this over to, I don't know, someone special and say, hey,
I didn't know that. Okay, great.
So Marlene, get going.
So I can send my wine list over.
Exactly. No, I mean, there's a whole range of products that I personally would love to see on Belize. I'm just like you, Marlene. I want food. I want food in every shape and form on the site. Every season exists, every meat product, every vegetable.
Fresh bread.
So I'm excited to get a lot more with this new venture that that we're developing right now, to get a lot more food products on the site. Mm-hmm. But even apart from that, there's a lot of producers in country who do a lot of artwork, and I'm just thinking about it now. I'm thinking, how are they coping with COVID-19 and post-COVID-19? And this is a perfect platform to get art supplies and artwork up there. I mean, if I unblur my background, you'd see my entire living room is filled with artwork. So that's something that I'm looking forward to.
I met a lady on Saturday who has handmade jewelry, and she's like, will you accept me on the site? I said, yes, come quickly.
Yeah, because you could have like a gift item segment portion, and it would also be great if I could just deliver it to someone, especially since we have restricted movement at this time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. One of the points is that you can order to be delivered to your friend. It's not just ordering for yourself. Mother's Day ordering went very well, and what we're finding is a lot of people who are away from home, who are in the US or elsewhere in the world, are excited because they can order to deliver to family in Belize. We don't at the moment deliver outside Belize, but if you're outside Belize, we can deliver to your loved one that Christmas gift you've been dying to get them. Yeah. And so that's an opportunity as well for
or buy them groceries for the month, if that's what they want to contribute from living abroad. You have everything from seasonings to personal care products. alcohol. We see quite a bit of Belizean-made products. You have handmade soaps. What's been the most interesting item that's been selling that you didn't anticipate?
Do you want to answer that one?
Is it? Oh, well, I should have.
No, we've been bringing on a lot of new products on the site. One thing that really hit the ground running was pools. Everyone was excited about swimming pools.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, when we check our data, we're excited about finding products that people are the most interested in.
Yeah.
Of course, we want to have a wide array of products on the site so that this really becomes your one-stop shop for anything when you're thinking about shopping. When you're thinking about going outside to multiple grocery stores, we want you to come to Belize on first. But we take a real good look at our data to find out different interests, and swimming pools really worked. Another popular item on the site are the food and grocery items. People want to know that they can get their seasonings, their meat products, their sauces, their salsas in one place, you know, and we have all of that. I think as we go along and we get a lot more vendors who can show us what they have to offer, so that not only us here at Belize On discovers what Belize has to offer, but so that everyone else out there realizes, hey, you know what? I don't need to go or think about shopping outside of Belize anymore. I have everything here. It's available to me right here.
And one of the things that went really well during the COVID lockdown was, and this was all local, was cleaning products and also personal care products, the local soaps and so on. And people started to discover all this wonderful local product that helped them to deal with their COVID needs.
Yeah, okay. So right now you are fully functional and you're still taking on new vendors. Let me be clear, there's no cost associated for the customer or the vendor.
The only obligations you have, the vendor pays a service fee on point of sale. When they make a sale, there's a small service fee which is used to maintain the site.
Okay.
And there may be a delivery fee depending on the product ordered and where you are. Other than that, basically, if you add up the cost, it's cheaper than going down to the store and making your order in terms of the convenience and the time saved and the fuel saved as well.
And do you deliver from one product to as many as I want?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. Gavin already has an order to put in.
You know? Food related.
Gavin, we have your favorite products. Don't worry. We have them all.
Okay, so how do people get in touch if they want to be able to sell some of their products?
They can get in touch with us. So we are on Facebook and Instagram. That's the easiest way. We also want customers or vendors to go onto the site to check it out at belizeon.bz, and there's a chat function there that you can provide us with your information. There's also a contact us page on the site itself that you can fill in your information. And you can also reach us at either 614-9992, which is our WhatsApp number. I mean, there's multiple ways to get in contact and provide us with your information and your interest so that we can get you onboarded as quick as possible.
Do you deliver on weekends too?
We deliver on Saturdays.
Okay, on Saturdays. Great.
We give our drivers a chance to rest and recharge on Sundays.
Okay. All right. So that website, once again?
It's
www.belizeon.bz. And one of the points I want to make is that it's rapidly becoming something you're missing out on if you're not a vendor on there. We're well over 1,000 products already, and actually many more to upload. Mike and his team have given up sleeping just for uploading purposes.
Yeah.
So, if you want to sell your product, join us.
Yeah. No, I was looking through it. You have quite a bit. I mean, you can definitely skip a trip to the grocery store and get your items there. And, what a better time to be able to develop our own Belizean online shopping experience, because clearly that's what our new normal will require. So best of luck, and we hope that people check out the site and that you're able to get more vendors on board too, which makes it easier for the shoppers.
Exactly.
Thank you, guys, and thanks for having us on.
All right. Do take care.
Take
There
care,
you have
everyone.
it. That website, once again, is belizeon.bz. You can go online and buy your product. It could be from personal care to your wines and drinks, you know.
Salsas, sauces, all sorts of stuff.
And I really do love the entire section dedicated to Belizean products. You know, you can get
Absolutely.
handmade soaps, you can get fibber sauce, that's delicious on so many
all the way
things.
down to fresh produce.
Yeah. All right, but that's it for us. We're actually going to shift gears now. So parents, you can go and check out Belize On. And it's time to get the kids in front of the television. And they are going to be hearing from Dr. Binox, who's teaching us about famous inventions this week. And the invention he's telling us about is super glue. So stay tuned.